This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your go-to Iowa-based sports show, hosted by the one and only Eliot Clough.
What's up, Cedar Valley, and hello to the Hawkeye State. This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your Iowa-based sports show hosted by me, Eliot Clough, UNI insider for Town Square Media. You can find me on Twitter. It is at Eliot Clough. We got great stuff ahead on today's show. Not only are we talking with Sam Herder from Hero Sports FCS, but we're talking with him for 2 straight segments, so very excited about that. If you already heard that on our podcast, we're doing a little flipperoo kind of thing this week where we have that podcast ready and available, and then we have both of those segments on our radio show. So that's coming up if you're listening on air as well. And if you are listening on air, we have a whole nother segment that you can only hear if you are subscribed to the podcast. So make sure you have Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, all of that subscribed, followed, so you don't miss any episodes. We're going to talk a little bit about Kadyn Proctor deciding to decommit from Iowa and pick Alabama. So that, again, will just be on the podcast. That'll be coming up here soon. But if you are listening on air, we've got Sam Herder from Hero Sports FCS talking about the championship game coming up between North Dakota State and South Dakota State, as well as if the portal's good for the FCS and more. Quite a bit more, actually. But on this first segment, what I want to get to is a couple different things. First of all, it's been a week or two. It's been 2 weeks. A week? It's been a certain amount of time since our last episode of Cornstalks and Sports Talk. So what I want to do here is do sort of an update on the transfer portal situation, as well as talk about signing day, which happened this week, and a ton of guys from the high school level deciding they want to be Panthers, who I'm most excited about, highest ceilings, stuff like that. But let's start with the portal. If you follow on KOEL, if you follow me on Twitter specifically, you know all these articles are up regarding the commits out of the transfer portal, i.e. Josh Volk, who is already signed, as well as, let's see here, Jonathan Cabral-Martin, the safety from Central Connecticut State. Both have signed as of this moment that I'm recording this, expecting DJ Hart and Mason Pierre-Antoine to be signing as well. But first, we'll go in chronological order. By commitment, DJ Hart committed while, again, all of these happened, most of these happened while I was gone and on PTO, so was not around to talk about it too much. But DJ Hart committed. He is probably going to play slot, step into that position where Deion McShane and Quan Hampton saw a lot of their snaps this last season. Tons of speed. I see him being a punt returner, kick returner, and again, we've talked about him already, so I won't get into it too much. We've got that article on the KOEL website if you haven't heard me talk about him or if you want to learn more. Again, another wide receiver added to the group, this time from the FBS. It's Mason Pierre-Antoine from Northern Illinois. That's a hell of a transfer to make, NIU to UNI, but coming in from the FBS, he was actually pretty highly recruited in high school, a 3-star recruit, and has a previous relationship with wide receiver Joe Gans, so I know that was a big push for him to end up in Cedar Falls, but he's a little bit bigger. He'll probably be an outside guy, tons of agility. I'm really excited to see what he does at UNI because I think there's some real untapped potential there for him. 3 years of eligibility for him as opposed to two years for DJ Hart, but either way, I'm excited about both of them. I would probably say in the immediate, DJ Hart is going to be more of an impact player than Mason Pierre-Antoine, but and that's largely because of the depth that UNI has at receiver, which we've talked about quite a bit. But for Pierre-Antoine, he was recruited, had interest from schools like Georgia, USC, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Penn State, and others, along with Iowa and Iowa State, according to Rivals, and was very highly sought after out of high school. Just couldn't quite break through at Northern Illinois from what I've gathered, but I really like what I've seen from him based on his film. Again, that previous relationship with Coach Gans, and also meeting Coach Reeder and seeing what Theo Day did last season, he is a big. Those are big reasons why he decided to end up in Cedar Falls. So another talented guy out of the portal from the FBS for him, and he's not making a position change like DeVell Washington, who went from wide receiver to linebacker at West Virginia. He'll be coming in with wide receiver reps and be more ready to go there. Again, more of a long-term thing for Pierre-Antoine, short-term for DJ Hart, both wide receivers who have committed to UNI out of the transfer portal. Now, on to these next few guys. Let's see here. Defense was definitely a concern of mine for the offseason and what the Panther staff was going to do going into the offseason, and they've really addressed it with one particular player in Jonathan Cabral Martin, who was another very highly sought after guy, this time out of the portal, though. 2 years of eligibility after coming out of Central Connecticut State, which he was nasty, an all-defensive player in that conference on, I think, a 1-11, 2-10 team this last season. So he's going to be coming in, going to be winning a lot more games. And with the departure of Benny Sapp III, Javon Brecky, and Corby Sander, this is a guy who can hit like Corby Sander, who can play in coverage and like Javon Brecky, like a safety should. And so he's a plug-and-play guy to me. Obviously, he's got to learn the defense. He's got to get things figured out in terms of chemistry. But this is exactly what UNI probably needed out of the portal in terms of defensive back. We've talked about it quite a bit, that defensive back position, and I think they just absolutely nailed it. This guy, again, you can read more about it on the KOEL website, but the only defensive back coming back truly from next season is Woo Governor, and you plug this guy into the defense, and this is a major win. He had offers out of the portal from Southern Illinois, Missouri State, Murray State, Eastern Kentucky, Elon, Tennessee State, Wofford, North Carolina A&T, all over the FCS. And he's going to be a great addition to the UNI defense. I think he more than likely looked at the history of UNI defense and decided this is where UNI is where he wanted to be. He told me that it came down to the fact that he felt that Cedar Falls is a football town and that the campus runs on football. Also like the facilities there. So lastly, of guys that have already committed, Josh Volk, who has signed, like I mentioned, as of this moment. He was a lineman at Cedar Rapids Xavier out of high school and decided to play for the Iowa Hawkeyes. But after spending, I think, 2 or 3 years there, he entered the portal this offseason and is headed to Cedar Falls, will don the purple and gold. Coach Ryan Clanton had to definitely be involved in that one. And with the loss of not only Eric Sorensen, but Justin Piney, who was second team all-conference. Honorable mention, Justin Piney, and then Matthew Vanderslice and Nick Ellis to graduation. 4 of your starters on the offensive line gone. Just Jared Penning back, and then Tristan Roper and Blake Anderson back as well. You add Josh Volk. That's a huge win. He was a 3-star out of high school and had offers from Iowa, Iowa State, and Nebraska, while also receiving interest from Notre Dame, Michigan State, Stanford, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and others. Just a big, dominant guy. And again, hopefully a plug-and-play guy, if player for the UNI staff. That's what you're looking for with a guy from the FBS who was recruited so heavily. And with the graduation of 4 seniors on the offensive line, that's a big win for them out of the portal. I really like that addition for the UNI football staff. This is Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. We're talking about the 2023 recruiting class for UNI football, mostly about the portal right now, which you can go to the KOEL website and find articles on all 4 of these guys who have committed. There's another player that's set to commit, as far as I know. That's not public yet, so I'm going to keep that close to the vest. You can follow along on Twitter to be sure when that happens. I will be sharing as well as an article about that player. Now, to the high school recruits, we're going to try to make this quick because there's a lot of players that have committed out of high school for the UNI Panthers, and there are a few that stand out to me in particular, and we'll talk mostly about them, but we've done this before too, when they committed, but I want to do a little bit more here on this National Signing Day as I'm recording this. A few haven't officially signed or haven't officially been released by UNI quite yet, but they're all committed. I haven't seen anything about a decommitment or anything like that. A few new faces that I was unaware of, just 1 or 2, but it's a really it's a really, really good class. And I'll tell you why. I mean, Braylon Camrad highlights it for me as far as a guy who isn't necessarily considered one of the better recruits in the class, but by, these ranking sites, right? Like Rivals and 24/7. He's not like a 3-star recruit like some of these other players, but I'm really excited about Camrad. I've talked about bringing in an FBS quarterback to the roster this offseason, but if Camrad is around and develops the way I think he could, man, that could be a grassroots recruit that comes in and develops and is your guy going into his junior season, redshirt sophomore season even. Again, we'll see on that depending on who comes in, what's next for Theo Day. Obviously, he only has 1 year of eligibility left, but we'll see what happens next for Camrad. I know Bodie Reeder is very high on him, which is a good sign, and Reeder obviously was a big part in his recruitment. Then Grant Larkin, wide receiver, 3-star wide receiver, and a huge pickup for this class. Initially committed to North Dakota, now coming in, and he's gonna be there at semester actually. So he will start in January at UNI to be there in class and to be part of spring football. So getting an edge on some of the other guys in the class and learning a lot right away after he's committed. So he will be in Cedar Falls coming up here quick. And then a few more recent commitments as of last night. Actually, a teammate of Grant Larkin, Cole Dutkovich, an outside linebacker there at Nequa Valley. He was the Chicago Sun Naperville 2022 Football Player of the Year. Had FBS offers from New Mexico State, Bowling Green, Akron, and Army. He played both sides of the football too. He played tight end and outside linebacker for Nequa Valley, and this guy is a football player, man. There are a couple dudes on this list that you look at and see their stats and see what they've done, see they're big and nasty, and it's just like that guy's going to come in, he's going to earn some time. He's going to earn the respect of Coach Farley, of Coach Bryce Pop, of Coach Ryan Clanton, and he's going to get some time. He's going to be UNI Panther, and to me, that's Cole Dutkovich. And on defense, speaking of which, Lance Behrens is another one, the 21st ranked player in Iowa, according to 24/7 Sports. I believe he had a 3-star tab, according to 24/7 Sports as well. Very highly recruited by some of these higher FCS programs, as well as some FBS programs like Air Force, and I think some of the other military academies. Just this season, with Cooper Ebel on his team, who is an Iowa State commit at linebacker, Behrens racked up 62.5 tackles, 15 tackles for a loss, and 7 sacks. That guy is a dude. I'm very excited about Lance Behrens. I see him being, a Cannon Butler type where we don't really hear from him that first year or two. He gets in the weight room, gets big, really learns a lot, and is just a force on either the interior or the edge for the UNI defense. Let's see here a couple more that I want to get to before we move on to that next segment here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com, talking about the UNI football 2023 recruiting class. The next one, and also a big one, it's Jackson Storts from Wisconsin. He was one of the finalists for the Joe Thomas Award, which goes to the best prep offensive lineman in the state. And sorry, I'm looking at something here regarding Storts. And it goes to one of the best offensive linemen in the state of Wisconsin, one of the best preps. Coach Ryan Clanton really, really got this one. Coach Bryce Pop was there towards the end of the signing period too. Montana offered him late, and Coach Pop was like, "Nah, I'll be there. We're gonna talk soon. I know you're already committed, but we really want you." He's a 2-star, but he had offers from, like I said, Montana, and then Indiana State, South Dakota, Navy, and Army, with interest from Wisconsin, South Dakota State, and North Dakota State. From what I can tell, UNI really pushed for Storts. Really wanted him to be in Cedar Falls, and he's a big, long kid. Another guy who you look at and it's like, okay, that's a dog. That's a player that Coach Mark Farley and Coach Clanton want on their offensive line, and they're not going to let him get away. to the best of their abilities anyway. And there's some other really talented players in this recruiting class. You can check out the remainder on the KOEL website and the KOEL app. We have that ready to go for you regarding the rest of the 2023 UNI football class. Go check that out. Ton of other really good players and other information on them. Guys that could definitely be impact players at UNI over the coming years. Again, this is Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. If you're listening on the podcast, we got one more segment of me talking a little bit about Kadyn Proctor, his flip from Iowa to Alabama. And if you're listening on the radio, we got Sam Herder from Hero Sports FCS coming up. Both great stuff. If you haven't listened on the podcast, make sure you go do that. Subscribe so you can get that next part here. Again, my name is Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter. I'm a UNI insider for Town Square Media. You're listening to Cornstalks and Sports Talk. Okay, thanks for you podcast listeners sticking around with us on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. If you're new because you wanted to tune in and hear this segment, make sure that you subscribe or follow if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the KOEL app, wherever you're at. We don't want you to miss any great content that's exclusive to the podcast, so make sure you do that. Leave that rate and review too, folks. That does help us out so much. We definitely want you to do that. And when we get those rates and reviews, the listens, the subscriptions, they just skyrocket. So it would really, really help us out if you did that. Now on to the topic at hand. News coming a couple days ago, technically, if you pay attention to the Hawkeye recruiting trail pretty strictly. David Eichelt from 24/7 Sports, who joins Cornstalks and Sports Talk pretty frequently, he went on a show in Des Moines and said that no, it's not official. No, Kadyn Proctor hasn't released a statement. Nothing of that sort, but he is 100% decommitted from Iowa and will be signing with Alabama. And that's... it's just not particularly, it's not good. We'll say that. And, I don't want to talk poorly about a high school kid making a decision that's best for him. I have no desire to do that. I'm really, really, I hesitate to, because I've been a kid. Like we've all been kids, right? And we've made poor decisions. We've ended up, changing our minds about things. Maybe not something that was this high profile, but he is a kid. And to make a decision that's ultimately best for him and what he wants to do, that I commend him for doing what was best for him and his family. Now, we've talked about this quite a bit here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk, whether it's been me or with David or Sean Bach, which I'm sure we'll catch up with one of these guys here soon enough and learn more about what went down, where Iowa lost Proctor, and more. But I want to hit on it today for several reasons. And the first one is what I just said. The issue of people trying to attack him on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, and say, oh, I don't know what a commitment is anymore. Okay. Again, high school kid trying to figure this out. And I can't imagine all the things he's heard from coaches and players and people that say they're there for him. But, if he tears his ACL, God forbid, if he gets an injury, they're done. Hands up in the air, taking advantage of a high school kid. I'm sure people around him have done something like that or would do something like that should that be the case. Again, God forbid. But I can't imagine being in that situation. Having been a track athlete who is very lightly recruited, I know nothing. I know nothing. And, from this vantage point of being a reporter, sure, covering college football, I know to a degree, but try to put yourself in his shoes. I don't even know if any of us can. because you're being hounded by Oregon, hounded by Alabama, hounded by Iowa, hounded by probably Colorado since Coach Brime got there and they offered him, hounded by whoever they still think they had a chance up until the very end of his recruitment. Now, I think what made this astronomically worse for him was his decision to announce his commitment in June rather than wait it out until the very end. And, you know, I a lot of these guys before their senior year do that to be done and have it taken care of going into their senior year of football, and they don't have to worry about it. So I imagine that's what his thinking was. But if that's reversed, if he commits to Alabama in June and then flips it and decides to stay at Iowa, the perception here is completely different. He's staying in his home state. He's loved here. Now, what are these next few months going to be like? I don't know if he's enrolling early. I would imagine so. I would imagine that's what Alabama wants him to do if he can do that academically. But I can't imagine how rough it's going to be. I mean, granted, he's a huge guy. If anybody gives him a hard time, you got some cojones, or you're dumb. You're dumb. But it would have been much better optically for him, especially here in Iowa, if he was initially committed to Alabama and decided to flip and stay home and be in Iowa. Now you flip on your home state. Not only do you flip on your home state, but you flip on your home state to go to a program that is almost universally hated because of how good they are. Optically, it just does not. It doesn't look great for Proctor, and it's not getting better by the moment. I mean, I see this tweet here on his Twitter feed, or in his likes rather, that was liked before he announced his decision to flip to Alabama, and I'm gonna go ahead and read it to you. It's from it's from Terry Roberts, actually, saying that it's only Iowa fans that are essentially so rude on Twitter and coming after guys who flip their commitment, which he said it's only with Iowa fans. I don't see no other fan base doing blank like this. It's funny, honestly. And, well, first of all, clearly Roberts is not coming back to Iowa. Second of all, Proctor actually liked that tweet. So that's not great, first of all. Not a great look. And not only to do that, but to do it before he announced he was flipping, that was, I'm surprised nobody else has really caught on to that or shared that for that matter. But a quote from him this morning when he made his decision was that he, quote, I thought I was settling at Iowa, which is just a hell of a thing to say. You know, I mean, it's your home state. It's where you grew up. You had already committed. You have a relationship with these guys. You have a relationship with the other commits, more than likely. You have a relationship with Xavier Nwankpa, who was on the team, your high school teammate. Oh, yeah, I felt like I was settling. Really? Why do you have to burn the bridge? And on top of that, he said that he doesn't, like, at Alabama, he didn't feel like he was an outlier because he was joining other five-star recruits that were at his level and that he can relate to. Talk about a slap in the face of the other recruits at Iowa. And I don't know, I've seen some scuttlebutt about his mom's involvement in his recruitment, not wanting him to go to Iowa for whatever reason, tweeting stuff about the Cyclones during his recruitment, about how, I don't know if she went to Iowa State or what, but I guess she didn't want him to go to Iowa. Again, I don't know anything specific about that, but having somebody like that in your ear on top of making the decision to flip doesn't help with the way he's thinking about it or communicating about it to the public, to the media. Ultimately, that is a really bad look. It's not, he should not have said any of those things. If he was asked why he should flip or why he decided to flip, you know, I just feel like Alabama's the better fit for me. I want to play for Nick Saban. They've won a bunch of national titles. It just felt like the better fit and place for me to develop going forward. And, that would still make Iowa fans salty. Hawkeye fans are going to be upset no matter what, but to burn the bridge to that degree is really unfortunate. And again, I don't want to stand up here and get on this mic and slander a high school kid. He's young. I'm sure he's going to look back on that as an adult and just cringe. I think I can think of 20,000 different things that I did at the age of 18. Maybe not that exact amount, but a bunch of different things that I did at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 that I look back and I'm just like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. Wisdom is earned, and unfortunately, youth is wasted on the young, as they say. And it's unfortunate the way things have played out. Am I going to try to assault the kid's character? No. I think he made what he believed to be the best decision for him. But it's just tough to look at that and say, yeah, I'm still going to root. It's tough to look at that and say, as somebody from Iowa, as somebody who grew up as a Hawkeye fan and knows lots of Hawkeye fans, obviously, it's tough for me to look at that and say, I'm still going to root for you, And it's just unfortunate. The situation was not handled well, and he's not going to be a Hawkeye. And who knows? Maybe he'll end up like Ross Piersbacher, who was virtually never heard of again after deciding to go to Alabama after Cedar Falls. Or maybe he'll be the next great Alabama offensive tackle and be a first-round pick and be everything he was projected to be. And great for him. Great for him if he does that. I'm sure, he's already probably got life-changing money with endorsements and stuff and the NIL deals going on. So, we'll see how it turns out for him. Wish him the best of luck. And we'll see how the remainder of the Iowa class turns out. Of course, Trevor Lauk still going to be around. Great offensive lineman. He'll hopefully come in and help the Hawks if you're a Hawk fan. And I'm sure Iowa's going to be really diving into the portal now, especially with Proctor's decommitment and signing at Alabama. I think that's really something they've got to do is go out and get a guy you can plug and play, because the Iowa offensive line as is not good enough. Not good enough at all. And I think if you're a Hawkeye fan, that's really, really what you're rooting for. Not only offensive talent on the outside in terms of receivers to add to Cade McNamara and Eric All at tight end. Caleb Johnson obviously still going to be in the backfield, as of right now anyway. But offensive line play was just awful the last 2 seasons. You got to go out and get an offensive lineman. You also lost Josh Volk to UNI, who we just mentioned in that last segment. But we'll probably see more holes in that offense and the defense, for that matter, in their bowl game matchup with Kentucky coming up in, just about 10 days. I think is it New Year's Eve or New Year's Day? I don't remember. Either way, they're playing Kentucky. And I see that Joey Labus will be the starter for the Hawkeyes. I'm really, really intrigued to, 1, see how he plays, 2, responds to Cade McNamara coming in and virtually having the starting job without earning it. Or not without earning it, but without playing a snap or without spring ball because of that knee injury. And David Eichel brought this up to us a few weeks ago, again, from 24/7 Sports Hawkeye Insider. Your worst nightmare is Joey Labus goes in and throws for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Imagine that. Imagine he does that after Alex Padilla and Spencer Petras weren't just bad, but awful all season. Imagine that. And imagine going into spring camp with a guy who had 1 phenomenal game and Cade McNamara, who ripped your defense apart in the Big Ten championship in 2021. Imagine that. Like, I know in reference to UNI, as somebody who covers UNI, Coach Mark Farley wants a quarterback competition every single fall camp. That is the last thing that the Iowa staff wants. Now, you want to win the bowl game, right? You're going to have Joey Labus in there, and you're going to try to be as successful as you possibly can. But to have him show off and not show off, but to show out rather, and look like the guy who should have been the starter all year and would have made Iowa significantly better, that would kind of suck. That would kind of suck. Well, we'll see how it shakes out, and I'm excited to watch that game. I'm sure we'll preview that here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com coming up in the next week or two, so stay tuned for that. Again, my name is Eliot Clough. I'm a UNI insider for Town Square Media. If you stuck around for this episode, if you listened to this episode, please subscribe, leave a rate and review, and follow wherever you're at, because it does help us out so much. We don't want you to miss an episode, too. We got great local content from a bunch of different reporters, including myself. Ethan Petrick hops on from time to time, David Eichholt, Sean Bach, Nick Osen, Randy Peterson from the Des Moines Register, Alyssa Hurdle from the Des Moines Register. We got great people in the state of Iowa covering the high-level sports here in our state. So subscribe, leave a rate and review. It'll help us out a lot. And lastly, if you want to go check out the article on the recruits, it's on the KOEL website. Also transfers for UNI on there too. Once again, folks, my name is Eliot Clough. I'm a UNI insider for Town Square Media. You can find me on Twitter. It is @Eliot Clough. This was another episode of Corn Stalks and Sports Talk.